Hello and welcome to yet another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. Today I'll be talking about the topic of the bad news about podcasting and social media marketing. Just so you know, this is not a podcast. This is a video where I talk about podcasting. I launch podcasts. It is what I do, podcastlaunch.pro. And quite often, even though I make shows that meet my clients' business objectives, nonetheless, there is always a topic of marketing, because marketing is a valuable thing to have. It leads to your business outcomes. It leads to the things you're trying to accomplish. You got to have marketing to get there, right? We all know that. There's occasionally a lightning in the bottle that gets captured, but in order to make anything really grow, you need to put some marketing behind it. In my case, most of my clients, the podcast is their marketing, but still we should do some marketing. And quite often the question is this: how do I use social media to market? Specifically, the question is this, or typically the statement is this. When I ask my clients what sort of digital assets they have so that we can leverage those digital assets as we launch not only their show, but also as each episode drops, what digital assets do you have that we can leverage? And a lot of times, when I hear from my clients, they say, I'm going to start a Facebook page. I'm not on Twitter right now, they say, but I'm going to put up a Twitter account for my show. I don't really use LinkedIn, but I think it's a great place for me to distribute my content. Okay. So here's the bad news about social media marketing. If you don't already have an existing community, building one on any of those platforms, or all of those platforms, is really hard. And if you just start from scratch, if you create a new Twitter account for your show, if you create a Facebook page for your show, or even if you make a Tumblr or whatever else you planned on doing for your show, expect it not to work. Now, there are plenty of Facebook pages that are quite successful, driving people to listen to a podcast. Same for Twitter accounts as feeds are shared. There's no doubt about that. But in each of those cases, all of those cases, the account was already existing, and it had dedicated people following it, who were in there, who were engaging. And also, the person or persons who maintain those social media properties work really hard to maintain those social media profiles and properties. Because just posting a weekly or bi-weekly or whenever link to your show, that's not being active in social. And so if you're jealous of a competitive show and the rich community they have built on Facebook, for example, and you want to do the same thing, understand what you're getting yourself into. You will be creating a community on Facebook or any other profile so that you can then market to that community. You will have to be creating and building the community first. A community of social media will not grow up around you just posting episodes of your show. It won't. Go look at the successful social media accounts for podcasts. Fun, business, hobby, drama, you name it. Every single one of them has if they're active, if their community is rich, if their community is really robust and going, there's more content made by the creators of the show and shared on that social media property than just the episodes of social media. Yes, by all means, you should share links to your episodes, no doubt. Yes, you should share a link to your show overall. But that's the easy stuff. That's not going to build a community for you. You have to build a community the hard way, which means creating content for that community that community wants to read about, see, hear. Herein lies the dirty secret. Aren't you doing that every week with your podcast? Aren't you already spending hours writing, recording, maybe even editing if you need that? Well, you should be editing. Someone's doing it. You're spending a lot of time creating content on your show. And probably, if you're like many of my clients, you should be spending more time creating content for your show. Maybe more content for your show. I don't know. But this trend I see quite often, it's not really a trend because it happens all the time, is people want to spend less time on their show. I had one client, the boss of the client emailed me recently and said, we just want to put out shows the easiest and fastest way possible. Really? That's what you want to do? Ease and speed are your metrics? No, they shouldn't be. You're putting out a show people want to listen to. You should be creating content that people can't not listen to. Content that is remarkable. That takes time, energy, and effort. And you want to produce a social media community from scratch? That's hard. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I absolutely think you should post your episodes to as many social media properties as you are active. And you should encourage people to do things with those social media properties. But if you're thinking that the way to success is to create a social media property for your podcast, and that's all you want to deliver to your podcast, that is all you want to deliver to that podcast community on that social media property, you are sorely mistaken. It's not going to work. Now, I don't think you should ignore social media. And I think if you haven't put out any effort to build your social media community, that shouldn't preclude you from using social media marketing to get your show out there. That's fine. Do it. Just don't expect a lot. Use it as a springboard to creating more relevant content beyond your podcast. Begin that way. It's fine to begin that way. Just don't expect a lot of accesses from there. But still, you should do it. And then you should find out what are the types of content that you can share socially about your show that you're not doing today. It's a long road ahead of you for just a podcast on its own. And then a social community too. It's hard. There are no shortcuts. You can't buy, well, you can, but you shouldn't buy fans and followers because those are all fake. No one's going to listen. You'll find out that 99% of your audience doesn't listen because you bought followers, which are bots and fake people that don't care. Don't do that. It's got to be hard won. Don't mistake social media marketing for advertising. Two very different things. We'll talk about advertising on a future show. But today, I wanted to share with you the bad news about social media marketing and your podcast. I launch podcasts. It's what I do. I make shows that meet business objectives. If that's what you need, contact me, evo@podcastlaunch.pro. If you want more information about how I do that, and my team does that specifically, podcastlaunch.pro is where you want to go. And if you want to see my past podcast pontifications, you can find them on my YouTube channel. Search for me, Evo Terra. They're on Facebook. Just search for Simpler Media. You can have all this. I do this every weekday. I'll be back tomorrow with yet another podcast pontifications. See you then. Cheers.